You say you want to be rich. Say it out loud right now if you want. I want to be rich. Okay. Really? Here's a thought experiment. For the next 30 days, I follow you everywhere. I record every decision you make, every hour you spend, every choice between the easy thing and the hard thing. At the end of it, I mute the recording. I never hear a single word you said about your goals. I just watch the footage. Would I look at that footage and conclude that becoming rich was one of the top priorities in your life? Not a nice to have. Not a someday thing. One of the actual top priorities, visible in how you spent your Tuesdays. Most people, if they're honest, already know the answer. And it's not the answer they've been telling themselves. Here's the uncomfortable part, and it's the whole video, so sit with it. You can genuinely, sincerely, enjoy the idea of being rich, without genuinely wanting the process that creates it. These feel like the same thing from the inside. They are not the same thing. One is a feeling you have on a couch. The other is a pattern of behavior sustained over years. And your brain, frankly, is very good at letting you feel one while believing you're doing the other. A psychologist studied this exact confusion for decades. His research on what he called mental contrasting found something that should bother you a little. People who spend time positively fantasizing about a future outcome, imagining it vividly, enjoying the mental image, are often less likely to actually achieve it. Not more. Less. Why? Because imagining the reward feels good enough, on its own, that the brain treats it as a kind of down payment. You picture the house, the freedom, the life. You feel the warmth of it. And something in you quietly relaxes, as if picturing it were the same as earning it. You haven't moved an inch. But you feel like you did. So let's name the actual distinction, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. A wish is something you enjoy imagining. A want is something your behavior consistently moves toward, whether or not it's enjoyable in the moment. Wishing costs nothing. You can wish for anything, all day, for free, forever. Wanting costs something every single time. It costs an evening. It costs comfort. It costs the version of you that would rather not. Most people, without ever consciously choosing to, have picked the wish. And they call it a want, because it's wearing the want's clothes. It has the right vocabulary. It has the right intensity of feeling. It just doesn't have the follow-through, because follow-through was never actually required to feel it. Think honestly about what people mean when they say they want to be rich. They want the money sitting there. They want the freedom to not check a price tag. They want the house, the traveling, the status, the sense that the pressure is finally off. All real. All understandable. Nobody's shaming you for wanting any of that. But do they want the uncertainty that comes before any of it exists? Do they want years spent learning something difficult, with no guarantee it pays off? Do they want the failed attempts, the ones that don't make it into anyone's highlight reel? Do they want the boring repetition, the unglamorous Tuesday after Tuesday of doing the unremarkable work that nobody claps for? Do they want the delayed gratification, the uncomfortable decisions, the responsibility that comes with building something instead of consuming something? Usually, if we're being honest with each other, no. They want the destination. They do not want the road. And here's the part that stings: you cannot get the destination without the road. There is no other route. So wanting the destination while rejecting the road isn't really wanting the destination. It's wanting to have arrived there by some other means. A means that, so far, does not exist. Here's a test you can actually run on yourself, and it's simpler than it sounds. Forget what you say. Forget what you post, what you tell your friends, what you write in your notes app at 1 a.m. Look only at what you repeatedly do. Someone says, "I want to build wealth." Then they spend 3 hours a night scrolling a screen that is engineered, quite deliberately, to make sure they never stop. They never study how money actually works. They never build a skill someone would pay for. They never take a single calculated risk. Nothing about their Tuesday changes, this year, from last year, from the year before. Their actions are not neutral. Actions are never neutral. Every day is a vote. And the vote isn't for wealth. It's for more of the exact life they already have, indefinitely, on repeat, forever, unless something interrupts the pattern. Here's the law hiding underneath all of this, and it is closer to a law than a suggestion. You don't get the future you say you want. You get the future your repeated behavior makes statistically likely. Nobody consults your intentions. Nobody checks what you meant to do. The future doesn't respond to your internal monologue. It responds to your patterns. Your habits are voting for a future every single day, whether or not you're paying attention to the ballot. Now picture your life not as a single snapshot, frozen today, but as a trajectory, a line moving through time. If your current habits, completely unchanged, continued for the next 10 years, exactly as they are right now, where would that line end up? Not where you hope. Where the math actually points. For most people, if they trace the line honestly, the answer is unsettling in its plainness. Roughly here. The same income bracket. The same relationship with money. The same evenings, spent the same way, for another decade. If the trajectory created by your actual behavior doesn't lead anywhere near the future you claim to want, then one of two things has to be true. Either the behavior changes, starting now, or the claimed want was never really a want at all. It was a wish, dressed convincingly as a want, for long enough that even you believed it. Now, before this tips into something ugly, here's the nuance that has to be said clearly, because without it this whole argument becomes cruel and wrong. This is not anyone who isn't rich doesn't actually want to be rich. That claim is lazy, and it is false, and it ignores reality on purpose to feel satisfying. Circumstances matter enormously. Starting conditions matter. Health matters. Economic timing matters. Responsibilities you did not choose and cannot walk away from matter. A person can genuinely, fully want wealth, do real work toward it for years, take real risks, and still fail, because the world is not a meritocracy that rewards effort on a fixed schedule. Wanting something correctly does not guarantee that you get it. Effort is not a vending machine. Nobody sane should promise you otherwise. So here is what you can actually examine, the only lever that is genuinely in your hands. You cannot control whether you become rich. Nobody can, fully, no matter what they sell you. What you can look at, honestly, without flinching, is whether your current behavior makes it more likely or less likely. Not will I succeed. Nobody can answer that in advance. The real question is smaller and far more answerable. Is what I am doing today even pointed in that direction at all? Economist Angus Deaton spent much of his career studying well-being and how life outcomes actually form over time. His work points to something people consistently underestimate: how much present choices compound. A single decision, on a single evening, feels completely irrelevant in isolation. It is not. Small decisions, repeated for years without anyone noticing, are the entire mechanism by which a trajectory actually forms. Nobody arrives anywhere by accident. They arrive by repetition, quietly, one unremarkable day at a time, until the sum of those days becomes a life. Here's the part that actually stings, more than anything said so far. People want the reward, and they reject the cost that produces it, and they do this without noticing the contradiction. They want the fit body, without wanting years of unglamorous, boring consistency. They want the deep relationship, without wanting the discomfort of being fully honest. They want the business, without wanting the 18 months where nobody notices, nothing works, and there is no proof yet that any of it will pay off. You cannot separate an outcome from what it costs to produce it. They are the same object, seen from two different angles. If you reject the cost, you have, functionally, already rejected the outcome. You simply haven't admitted that to yourself yet, because admitting it feels worse than continuing to wish. Researcher Angela Duckworth studied long-term goal pursuit across thousands of people, trying to find what actually separated the ones who reached distant, difficult outcomes from the ones who didn't. Her findings point somewhere specific. It wasn't the people with the strongest, most vivid fantasies about the outcome. It was the people who could tolerate years of unglamorous, unrewarded effort without needing constant proof that it was working. That tolerance, that ability to keep going without applause, is what wanting actually looks like from the outside. It rarely looks like passion in the moment. Most of the time, from the inside, it just looks like showing up on a day you'd rather not. So here is the real question, and it doesn't have a comfortable answer. If you repeated today, exactly as it happened, every single day for the next 10 years, would you arrive at the future you claim to want? If the honest answer is no, the problem probably isn't that you can't become rich. Plenty of people with far less than you have found a way. The actual problem is smaller and stranger than that. You never consciously decided you were willing to pay for it. You wanted to have arrived. You didn't want the trip that gets you there. And that's the distinction hiding underneath the entire question, the one most people never separate out. Wanting to be rich and wanting to have been rich are not the same desire, even though they feel identical in a daydream. One requires you to become someone different, slowly, through years of friction you cannot skip. The other only requires a better morning fantasy, replayed for free, indefinitely, changing nothing. Most people, without ever noticing the swap, have quietly picked the second one. And they call it the first, because the first one sounds so much better said out loud. Maybe the real question was never why aren't you rich yet? That question is too easy to deflect, too easy to blame on circumstances, timing, luck, or the economy. Maybe the harder, quieter question is this. What does everything you actually do, every single day, when nobody's listening to what you say, suggest you really want?